If you enjoy peaceful royal weddings where nothing goes wrong, you are in the wrong kingdom, the wrong timeline, and frankly, the wrong emotional tax bracket. Because in the deeply dramatic, mildly unhinged kingdom of Velkrith, the slightly unstable, today is the day Alpha King Zerobryn Thunderfang III makes the single most confident mistake of his adult life. And you are about to watch it unfold in high-definition foolishness. But first, subscribe. Yes, you. Hovering there. We're still in it. Good. Now where were we? Ah, still in it. Good. Now where were we? Ah, yes. Impending royal disaster. Alpha King Zerobryn Thunderfang III enters his arranged marriage with the swagger of a man who has never lost a war, never doubted his jawline, and never, not once, read the terms and conditions of anything in his life. He looks magnificent. He looks powerful. But he looks like a man about to sign away his peace of mind with a decorative quill. Across the grand ceremonial hall stands his new bride. Lady Malfuria, please try me, Vantablade. She is calm, elegant, composed, and scanning the room like she already knows where to stand when things inevitably catch fire. The court watches with hopeful smiles. This is their first mistake. Zerobryn gives Malfuria his best alpha stare, the one that usually makes enemy generals reconsider their career choices. But Malfuria looks back at him the way one looks at a mildly overconfident rooster. Unmoved, unimpressed, possibly calculating wind direction. In the second row, a nervous noble whispers, "Oh, this marriage has tension." The royal maid beside him whispers back, "No, darling, this marriage has insurance claims." The royal scribe steps forward with the marriage contract, 37 pages of legal language and one extremely spicy hidden clause. Zerobryn takes the document with heroic confidence. Does he read it? Of course not. This is a man who believes consequences are a lifestyle choice for other people. He signs mid-speech, without blinking, without pausing, without a single survival instinct firing. The royal scribe leans toward the chief advisor and whispers, "Should he?" The advisor, a tired man who has seen too much, slowly closes his eyes. Let natural selection work. Pen scratches, ink dries, destiny laughs. As the signed contract is handed back, the several court officials exchange the kind of looks usually reserved for approaching storms, suspicious cooking smells, and relatives who say, "Trust me." One courtier mutters, "Your Majesty has never met a document he couldn't emotionally ignore." Another adds, "This marriage is already giving me insurance paperwork energy." Zerobryn, meanwhile, stands tall, proud, and completely unaware that he has just legally authorized his own future problems. Malfuria finally accepts the contract. And that's when things get interesting. With delicate, terrifying calm, Lady Malfuria flips through the contract. Not casually, not randomly. Target acquired. Her finger stops on one very specific section. She reaches into her sleeve and pulls out a small, elegant ribbon bookmark, like a woman who came to this wedding prepared for administrative violence. She slides it neatly into place, closes the contract, looks up at her new husband, and smiles. Not sweetly, not warmly, knowingly. Across the hall, the royal advisor suddenly develops a stress headache so powerful it deserves its own title. Because somewhere deep in the legal fine print, Clause 47 has just been activated. Zerobryn Thunderfang III does not yet know it, but he has just legally married the only woman in the kingdom authorized to beat him up with paperwork. And unfortunately for his dignity, she reads contracts. There are 3 things Alpha King Zerobryn Thunderfang III fears. 1. Nothing. 2. Absolutely nothing. 3. Fine print, but only in theory. Unfortunately for him, Clause 47 is about to introduce itself like an unpaid gym membership, aggressively, and with zero mercy. And it all begins with one terrible decision. Zero Bryn decides to establish dominance. In private, with confidence, with posture, with chest. So much chest. The training yard is quiet, dignified, and moments away from becoming historically embarrassing. Zero Bryn stands at full intimidating height, her golden eyes glowing, aura practically screaming, "I am the problem." Across from him, Lady Malfuria Vantablade stands perfectly calm, hands folded, expression neutral, looking less like a nervous new bride and more like someone mentally stretching. Zero Bryn lowers his voice into maximum brood mode. "You will learn your place in this marriage." Bold, dramatic, deeply unfortunate timing. Malfuria blinks once, tilts her head. Then, with the emotional energy of someone ordering afternoon tea, she says, "I invoke Clause 47. The air changes. Somewhere in the distance, a court lawyer feels a disturbance in the paperwork. Zero Bryn frowns. Because surely, this delicate, composed woman is not about to... She rolls up her sleeves. Ah, there it is. The sound Zero Bryn hears next is not fear, not panic, but the distinct, horrifying crack of knuckles with legal authority. From the sidelines, the royal guards exchange a look. One of them slowly begins dragging over a chair. Another follows. Then another. Within 30 seconds, the training yard has the audience energy of a sporting event nobody officially approved. A palace maid leans toward her co-worker, eyes shining with pure chaotic anticipation. She whispers, "Oh, this marriage is gonna eat." Her co-worker nods solemnly and pulls out a small notebook labeled Royal Incidents, Ongoing. Meanwhile, Zero Bryn is still operating under the deeply incorrect assumption that he is in control of this situation. He squares his shoulders, flexes slightly, makes the fatal mistake of smirking. Malfuria's eyebrow lifts exactly 2 millimeters. It is the last warning he will receive. History will not record the exact sequence of events, because frankly, it was too fast. What historians will agree on is this. 10 minutes later, the most feared Alpha King in Velkrith is, on the ground, slightly dusty, and tasting decorative gravel that was imported at great expense. The training yard is silent, respectfully stunned. One brave royal physician leans toward the head guard and murmurs, "Your Majesty has been respectfully rearranged." The head guard watches Zero Bryn attempt to process gravity and adds, "I've seen folding chairs with more resistance." Across the yard, Malfuria calmly dusts off her hands like she just completed light household chores. Not winded, not smug, just efficient. Which is somehow worse. Flat on his back, staring at the sky, Zero Bryn Thunderfang III experiences 3 emotions in rapid succession: outrage, confusion, and something deeply inconvenient. Because his wolf, traitorous furry menace that it is not alarmed. Oh no, the wolf is interested, alert, possibly impressed. Zero Bryn would like to file a formal complaint with his own instincts. As Zero Bryn is helped to his feet with what can only be described as ceremonial dignity damage, the court begins to murmur. Quietly at first. Then louder, and then financially. A noble in the back whispers, 5 gold says she does it again by next week. Another responds instantly, 10 says it's sooner. The royal treasurer, who absolutely should not be involved in this, quietly opens a ledger. And just like that, the first official betting pool in royal marriage history is born. High above the training yard, from the palace balcony, the chief advisor watches the scene unfold and removes his glasses very, very slowly. Because the Alpha King does not yet realize something critically important, he is not avoiding these confrontations. He is already planning the rematch, and unfortunately for his remaining dignity, the entire court has started keeping score. There are hobbies, there are bad habits, and then there is Alpha King Zerobryn Thunderfang III, who has somehow turned getting legally dropkicked by his own wife into a recurring calendar event. At first, it was an incident. Then it was a misunderstanding. Now it's starting to look suspiciously like a weekly program with excellent attendance, and absolutely nobody in the palace is behaving normally about it. It begins innocently. Zerobryn makes one mildly arrogant comment at breakfast. Malfuria doesn't even look up from her tea. Clause 47. Boom. Training yard. Round 2. 3 days later. But he does it again, this time during a council meeting because apparently self-preservation is a skill he left in another lifetime. Clause 47. Round 3. By the end of the month, the palace schedule looks like this. Monday, military briefing. Wednesday, trade negotiations. Friday, royal marital combat. Tentative but emotionally certain. The chief advisor develops a permanent eye twitch. At first, the guards pretended this was shocking. Now they're bringing refreshments, on actual refreshments. One morning, Zerobryn strides into the training yard, fully prepared to be intimidating, and stops dead. Because someone has set up folding chairs, shaded seating, and a very enthusiastic pastry vendor. The vendor waves. "Your usual spot, Your Majesty?" Zerobryn stares at the man like betrayal has a face, and it sells baked goods. From the sidelines, one guard mutters, "At this point, the guards have season tickets." No one disagrees. If things were merely embarrassing, but Zerobryn could survive. Unfortunately, Velkrith has an entrepreneurial spirit. By week 3, commemorative scorecards appear, betting slips circulate, and someone, no one will confess who, starts selling tiny wooden figurines labeled before Clause 47 and after Clause 47. Zerobryn picks one up, examines it, puts it down very slowly. "Find who made this." The head guard, without blinking. "We have many suspects, Your Majesty." On the surface, Zerobryn is furious, outraged, deeply, royally offended. He stands at the edge of the training yard, rolling his shoulders with aggressive reluctance. "I am not looking forward to this." He says this while already stretching. Across the yard, Malfuria watches him with the calm focus of a woman observing a recurring weather pattern. The royal physician leans toward the chief advisor and whispers, "Your Majesty," respectfully. He is the common denominator. The advisor exhales the tired sigh of a man whose career choices are haunting him. "I know. Here's the problem. Zerobryn is adapting. Oh, he's still losing. Let's not get delusional. But the fights are lasting longer now, closer, sharper. There are moments, brief, dangerous moments, where Malfuria actually has to try." The court notices. They lean forward. The snack vendor stops mid-sale. Because something in the air is shifting. It happens during what should have been another routine disaster. Steel clashes. On boots pivot. Malfuria moves, fast, precise, lethal in a way that is frankly rude to physics. And suddenly, Zerobryn's wolf goes very, very still. Not angry, not threatened, alert, interested, deeply, inconveniently interested. Mid-spar, Zerobryn falters half a step. Just half. But Malfuria's eyes flick to his face immediately. Sharp, suspicious, like she just heard a noise in the walls. From the sidelines, the royal physician squints. Oh no. The advisor goes pale. "For what?" the physician whispers, horrified. "The wolf is clocking in." That night, alone in his chambers, Zerobryn Thunderfang III stares at the ceiling like a man personally betrayed by his own biology, because his wolf is pacing, restless, awake in a way it has never been before. And worst of all, it only started after Malfuria smiled during their last fight. Across the palace, in her own chambers, Malfuria pauses mid-movement. Slowly, carefully, like someone who just felt the first distant rumble of incoming chaos. There are dignified ways for a powerful Alpha King to respond to mild romantic confusion. Zero Bryn Thunderfang III has chosen none of them. Instead, the most feared ruler in Velkrith is currently awake at dawn, shirtless, and doing push-ups like the floor personally insulted his bloodline. Because his wolf? His wolf has downloaded the wrong personality update, and it is acting deeply unprofessional. On symptom number 1, the staring. It starts subtly, which is to say, not subtly at all, during breakfast, during council meetings, during one extremely tense hallway encounter involving a decorative suit of armor and several emotionally invested maids. Zero Bryn keeps looking at Malfuria, not casually, not politically, but like a man trying to solve a puzzle that keeps punching him back. Malfuria notices by day 2. Because of course she does. She sips her tea slowly and says without looking up, "If you stare any harder, Your Majesty, I will start charging rent." Zero Bryn nearly chokes on his own royal dignity. Symptom number 2, the pacing. Next comes the pacing. The guards report it first, then the servants. Then one deeply concerned footman named Gerald of Poor Timing files an informal emotional incident report. Zero Bryn is pacing the palace corridors at all hours like a man whose thoughts are doing parkour. Back and forth. On back and forth. Back and... The chief advisor finally snaps. "Your Majesty, respectfully, are we expecting a war?" Zero Bryn stops mid-stride. "No." Pause. "Why?" The advisor gestures vaguely. "Because you are wearing a path into the marble." Symptom number 3, aggressive shirtlessness. This is where things escalate from concerning to administratively suspicious. Suddenly, and with absolutely no warning, Zero Bryn begins training shirtless. Frequently, publicly. It leans toward another and mutters. Yor leans toward another and mutters, "Your Majesty is working out like the weights personally offended him." The second guard nods gravely. "I fear we are witnessing emotional cardio." Across the yard, Malfuria watches exactly once, raises one unimpressed eyebrow, and walks away. Zero Bryn immediately adds 20 more reps out of pure spite. Eventually, or the royal physician is summoned, because the palace staff are tired, and also nosy. The physician observes Zero Bryn for a long moment, stroking his beard with professional concern. Then he delivers his diagnosis. "Your wolf is thriving aggressively." Zero Bryn freezes mid-stretch, slowly straightens. That is not a medical term. The physician shrugs with the confidence of a man whose paycheck is guaranteed. "It is now." From the doorway, the chief advisor whispers, "If tension were visible, we'd need crowd control." No one argues. Here is the problem. If Malfuria were flustered, this would be manageable. If she were shy, this would be survivable. But Malfuria Vantablade watches Zero Bryn's increasingly suspicious behavior the way one watches. A weather pattern, a mildly dramatic pigeon, or a man who clearly pulled a muscle trying to impress nobody. During one training session, he lands a particularly clean strike in their spar. For half a second, her eyes sharpen with something that almost looks like interest. Almost. Then she steps back and says coolly, "You're improving, Your Majesty." Zero Bryn's soul leaves his body briefly, and then returns with trust issues. By now the entire palace knows something is happening. They just don't know what. The betting pool has expanded. The snack vendors have upgraded their menu. The Gerald of Poor Timing has started a private journal titled, "The King is Going Through Something." And then, because the universe enjoys timing, everything gets worse. That afternoon, in the middle of what should have been a routine training yard defeat, a court mage drops his crystal scrying orb. it activates, accidentally, violently, and just like that, Zerobrin's latest, most undignified loss to his wife is magically broadcast across 3 neighboring kingdoms in full clarity, with excellent audio. High above the training yard, the chief advisor closes his eyes very slowly, because the Alpha King's reputation has just left the building, and it did not take the stairs. There are bad days. There are humiliating days. And then there is the day your royal defeat gets magically broadcast across 3 neighboring kingdoms in high definition with surround sound and dramatic replay angles. Alpha King Zerobrin Thunderfang III is currently having that day. And unfortunately for his remaining dignity, the continent is laughing. By sunrise, Velkrith receives 7 diplomatic letters, 4 polite inquiries, and 1 fruit basket labeled "Get Well Soon, Champ." Zerobrin reads the attached note. His eye twitches so hard it deserves its own medical classification. Across the council chamber, the advisors sit in a tight, terrified circle of professional panic. Because this is no longer a private embarrassment. This is geopolitical comedy. One advisor whispers, "They've started calling it the Thunderfold Incident." Another, voice hollow, "There are reaction compilations." The full royal council assembles. Nobody is breathing normally. Zerobrin stands at the head of the table, radiating the energy of a man considering several illegal options. Across the room, Malfuria leans against a pillar, calm as ever, like she did not personally rearrange the monarchy's public image last Tuesday. The chief advisor clears his throat. Once, or twice, then delivers the verdict with the courage of a man who has updated his will. "Your Majesty, the neighboring kingdoms believe your marriage lacks unity." Zerobrin's eye narrows. "Define unity." The advisor swallows. "They think Her Majesty is running you like a well-funded hobby." Silence falls. Heavy. Dangerous. Gerald of poor timing quietly exits the room for self-preservation. What follows is 15 minutes of escalating bureaucratic distress. Charts are produced, graphs are shown. One advisor begins sweating through formal wear. Finally, the chief advisor slams both hands on the table. "We must repair the royal image immediately." Zerobrin crosses his arms. "How?" The advisor takes a deep breath. Commits to chaos. "You must appear romantically united." The room goes still. Very still. From the far corner. Thud. One junior advisor faints directly into a decorative fern. No one helps him. This is not the biggest problem in the room. Zerobrin stares, long, unblinking, like a man who has just been asked to emotionally participate. No. Across the room, Malfuria speaks at the exact same time. Absolutely not. The synchronization is frankly impressive. The chief advisor does not even flinch. He has passed the point of fear. With respect, you are both overruled. Zerobrin leans forward slowly, dangerously. "I would rather fight a bear." Malfuria folds her arms. "Cool as winter. I would rather fight 2 bears." From the doorway, Zerobrin looks down. And immediately. Zerobrin looks down. And immediately regrets having eyesight. The document reads, "Royal Unity Tour," featuring public hand-holding, balcony appearances, romantic carriage rides, and 1 deeply cursed formal dance. Zerobrin looks up slowly. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. But you must now flirt for the crown," the advisor says gently, like a man defusing a bomb made of pride and poor decisions. Zerobrin leans back in his chair and mutters darkly, "I would rather duel the furniture." Across the room, Malfuria's lips twitch. Just once. So fast it might have been a trick of the light. This is deeply concerning. Word spreads through the palace at the speed of scandal. The guards are thrilled. The maids are emotionally invested. The betting pool expands immediately. The Gerald of Poor Timing updates his journal. The King is Spiraling, Romantic Edition. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, Zerobrin and Malfuria stand side by side in tense silence. Close. Too close. For the first time since this disaster marriage began. Neither of them looks entirely unaffected. That evening, royal messengers ride out in every direction carrying one catastrophic announcement. The Royal Unity Tour begins at dawn. Across the kingdom, excitement explodes. Across the palace, the staff begin preparing emotionally, and in his private chambers, Alpha King Zerobrin Thunderfang III stares at his reflection like a man preparing for combat. Because tomorrow, he has to flirt in public. And historically speaking, this man is significantly more dangerous with a sword than with feelings. If you had told Alpha King Zerobrin Thunderfang III that his greatest battlefield would one day be holding his own wife's hand in public, he would have laughed, but then challenged you to a duel, then possibly taxed you out of spite. And yet here we are, because nothing in Zerobrin's extensive combat training prepared him for forced romantic proximity under government supervision. The palace courtyard is packed, not officially, but spiritually. Word has spread that today marks the first appearance of the royal couple in what the advisors are aggressively calling a beautiful display of marital harmony. The guards know better. The maids know better. When the snack vendors have doubled inventory, because standing at the top of the palace steps are two people who look like they would both rather fight wildlife. The chief advisor steps forward, voice bright with the desperation of a man who has tied his career to this moment. Your Majesty, the hand. Zerobrin stares at his wife's hand, like it is a suspicious object found in the woods. Malfuria raises one brow, slowly, patiently, dangerously. But the crowd leans forward as Zerobrin reaches out and takes her hand with the cautious energy of a man diffusing a magical explosive. From the sidelines, a guard whispers, "This is the most hostile handholding I have ever witnessed." Another guard fans himself. "Romance is happening. Nobody panic." Zerobrin's grip is firm, controlled, also visibly terrified. Malfuria glances down at their joined hands and says dryly, "Relax. I only maim recreationally." Zerobrin nearly drops her hand on reflex, or the court loses 10 years off its collective lifespan. They descend the palace steps together. In sync. Mostly. Occasionally. Zerobrin is hyper-aware of, her hand in his, her shoulder near his, and the fact that his wolf is currently pacing like it drank espresso. Meanwhile, Malfuria walks with perfect composure. Too perfect. Like she is also noticing things she does not plan to discuss. At the bottom of the steps, their eyes meet briefly. Just briefly. And there it is. The almost smile. It flashes across Malfuria's face for half a second. Quick, sharp, gone. Zerobrin forgets how knees work for approximately 2 business seconds. If the hand-holding was bad, the carriage ride is worse. Small space, close quarters, too much leg, too much eye contact, not enough oxygen. The royal carriage rolls through the capital, while outside the citizens cheer, and inside the tension reaches levels normally reserved for siege warfare. Zerobrin sits rigid. Malfuria sits calm, and their knees accidentally brush. Both freeze. From the driver's seat, the coachman mutters quietly, "I should not be this invested in my employer's personal growth." Inside the carriage, Malfuria finally speaks. Soft. Measured. "You're quieter than usual, Your Majesty." Zerobrin clears his throat like it personally offended him. "I am conserving energy." She hums, not convinced, not fooled, possibly entertained. This is new and dangerous. By the time they return to the palace, the rumors are spreading at record speed. The betting pool expands again. Gerald of Poor Timing updates his journal with shaking hands. Eye contact occurred. Repeat. Eye contact occurred. Meanwhile, Zerobrin is standing in the training yard later that evening, stretching, aggressively, suspiciously, like a man who has just made a deeply questionable emotional decision. Across the yard, Malfuria watches him once. Just once. Her eyes narrow slightly, because she recognizes that look. And that is the look of a man about to do something profoundly unnecessary. Zerobrin rolls his shoulders, steps forward, and with the confidence of a man who has learned absolutely nothing from previous consequences, he says, "Best of 10. The entire training yard goes silent. Across from him, Malfuria slowly smiles. Not warm, not gentle, interested, because the Alpha King has just escalated the situation. Again. And this time, she accepts. There are friendly wagers, or there are competitive rivalries, and then there is Alpha King Zerobrin Thunderfang III, looking his wife dead in the eye and saying, "Best of 10. At no point did any responsible adult approve this decision. At several points, the universe tried to intervene. Unfortunately, Zerobrin has the survival instincts of a man who thinks consequences are optional DLC. And now the palace has accidentally entered its tournament arc, where the court gathers in the training yard with the tense energy of people who absolutely should not be emotionally invested, and absolutely are. The chief advisor reads the official terms with visible regret. 10 events. Winner takes bragging rights. Loser takes emotional damage. The kingdom takes notes. Malfuria stands calm and composed. Zerobrin stands like a man who has already mentally prepared a victory speech, where the royal physician leans toward a guard and whispers, "I am concerned about the king's optimism." The guard whispers back, "I am concerned about his bones." Event 1. Sword duel, violence but with footwork. Steel clashes, boots pivot. The crowd leans forward like this is the finale of their favorite bad decision. Zerobrin comes in strong, faster than before, sharper than before. For a brief, shining moment, it actually looks competitive. Then Malfuria adjusts. And suddenly, His Majesty is reconsidering several life choices mid-swing. The judges scribble furiously. Score, Malfuria leads. From the sidelines, Your Majesty is fighting for his life and also his feelings. No one corrects this statement. Event 2. Chess match, Petty Edition. If the sword duel was physical, the chess match is psychological warfare with snacks. They sit across from each other in deadly silence. Pieces move. Eyes narrow. 5 moves later. Checkmate. Clean. 5 moves later. Checkmate. Clean. Disrespectful. Zerobrin stares at the board like betrayal has geometry. Score tightens, because apparently he did win the previous round's technicality appeal. No one is emotionally stable about it. Event 3. Horse race. Absolutely feral. This is where dignity fully leaves the building. The royal racetrack is packed, and the betting pool has reached morally concerning levels. The horn sounds, and both of them launch forward like competitive chaos in human form. Dust flies. Nobles scream. One hat is lost to history. At the final stretch, Zerobrin edges ahead by half a length. The crowd erupts. Score now dangerously close. From the stands, one guard clutches his helmet and whispers, "I'm too invested in this marriage." Same, sir. Same. On Event 4, the baking contest, a documented war crime. No one, and I mean no one, was emotionally prepared for this round. Aprons are issued. Ingredients are provided. Zerobrin looks personally betrayed by flour. Malfuria rolls up her sleeves with calm menace. 30 minutes later, the judges stand before 2 creations. One is elegant, balanced, edible. The other is technically a baked good. Possibly. The head judge pokes Zerobrin's entry with a fork. The fork bends, and the judge writes something down and drinks water like he has seen too much. Score evens again. The palace is losing its collective mind. The spiral becomes personal, not casually, emotionally. Each round is tighter, longer, more charged. Their eye contact lingers too long between events. Their proximity is starting to look less like rivalry and more like dangerously competitive flirting with paperwork. From the royal balcony, those are approaching feelings at unsafe levels. We must intervene to prevent emotional distress. The royal physician nods solemnly. We are approaching feelings at unsafe speeds. As the dust settles and the scores stand neck and neck, the chief advisor clears his throat with the energy of a man about to escalate a situation he cannot control. For the next event, the ballroom challenge. Silence drops, heavy, suspicious. Across the arena, Zerobrin and Malfuria lock eyes. Because sword fights are one thing, horse races are survivable. But the royal ballroom? That is where reputations go to die. And unfortunately for everyone involved, neither of them plans to lose. There are many dangerous places in the kingdom of Velkrith. The battlefield, the training yard, the royal council after lunch. But tonight, the most dangerous location in the entire realm is the ballroom floor, freshly polished and emotionally loaded. And because nothing, and I mean nothing, has historically humbled Alpha King Zerobrin Thunderfang III faster than prolonged eye contact with his own wife. And tonight, there will be violins, crystal chandeliers blaze overhead, nobles pack the room shoulder to shoulder, vibrating with the restrained excitement of people who absolutely came to witness romantic complications. The court musicians sit ready. Too ready. One violinist wipes sweat from his brow. Why does this feel like a boss battle? No one answers him, because at the top of the grand staircase stand the evening's main problem, Zerobrin and Malfuria, dressed to kill, possibly emotionally. The dance begins, technically. The music swells. Zerobrin offers his hand, this time only slightly like it might explode. Malfuria places her hand in his. Calm, steady, too steady. They step onto the floor, and for the first few movements, it's actually going well. The court leans forward. Hope flickers. Maybe, just maybe, this will be smooth. Then Malfuria's fingers tighten slightly in his, and Zerobrin makes the catastrophic mistake of looking directly into her eyes. Time does something illegal, because for the first time since this ridiculous marriage began, the tension stops being funny. The world narrows. Music fades to background noise. Zerobrin's wolf goes very, very still. Malfuria studies him quietly, carefully, like she just noticed something new and mildly inconvenient. Then, softly, almost thoughtful, she says, "You're improving." Zerobrin.exe stops responding. His next step is late, then wrong, then creatively interpreted. From the musician section, the conductor begins sweating through formal wear. The violinists scramble to adjust tempo like their lives depend on it. From the sidelines, one guard whispers urgently, "Your Majesty has blue-screened emotionally." Another guard fans himself. "Someone unplug him and plug him back in." Zerobrin recovers, barely, pulling Malfuria back into proper position. Too close. Way too close. The court collectively stops breathing. For 3 dangerous seconds, they move perfectly in sync. No missteps, no sarcasm, just smooth, precise motion and eye contact that has officially crossed into questionable territory. Malfuria's expression softens. Just a fraction. Zerobrin notices. This is a mistake, because now his wolf is not just alert. It is invested, deeply, inconveniently, irrevocably. From the royal balcony, the chief advisor grips the railing. "Oh no," he whispers. The royal physician nods grimly. It's mutual. The dance ends to roaring applause. The crowd is thrilled. The betting pool explodes. Gerald of poor timing drops his journal and whispers, "We have entered phase feelings." Zerobryn and Malfuria step apart slowly. Too slowly. Something unspoken hangs in the air between them now. Something new. The pale and out of breath. "Your Majesty." He stumbles in, pale and out of breath. "Your Majesty." He gulps, voice shaking. "We have a situation." Across the room, the chief advisor's face drains of color as the messenger continues. "The neighboring kingdoms aren't laughing anymore." Pause. Heavy. Ominous. Or they're mobilizing. And just like that, the romantic tension doesn't disappear. It just gets a countdown timer. The attack does not arrive with dignity. It arrives with screaming and fire, and the kind of dramatic timing usually reserved for people who enjoy ruining other people's character development. 1 minute, the palace is minding its business. The next, boom! A window explodes inward. Courtiers scatter like someone yelled, "Free taxes!" Guards draw steel. Somewhere, a nobleman faints with commitment. And in the middle of the chaos, Zerobryn is still processing the fact that 10 minutes ago he was arguing about pastry sabotage. "Your Majesty!" Too late. The assassin comes fast, professional, silent, extremely rude. Blade aimed straight for the king's very expensive torso. Time does that slow-motion thing it only does when the plot is about to emotionally body-slam someone. Zerobryn moves, but not fast enough. What happens next will later be described by 12 witnesses, 3 dramatists, and 1 deeply shaken pastry chef. Because Malfuria steps in front of him. No hesitation, no dramatic speech. Just steel meets flesh. Everything stops. Not the battle, not the screaming, not the guards tackling the assassin into next week, but Zerobryn. Zerobryn stops. Malfuria sways. For 1 terrifying second, she looks more annoyed than injured. Then she folds. Zerobryn catches her before she hits the floor, which is impressive, because his brain has, at this point, completely left the chat. "Get the healer," he says. Quietly. Too quietly. This is not his usual voice. This is the voice of a man whose emotional support sarcasm has just been confiscated by the universe. The assassin is dragged away. Guards shout orders. Someone is still on fire in the background. No one is addressing it. This feels on brand. But the camera, spiritually, stays on Zerobryn. I'm Vanish if he breathes wrong. The royal Vanish if he breathes wrong. The royal healer slides in with the speed of someone who has absolutely seen worse, but would prefer not to. He kneels, examines, pauses. Everyone in the immediate vicinity stops breathing, including, possibly, the furniture. She will live. Collective palace exhale. But His Majesty has not blinked in 6 minutes. The guard nearest the door leans toward another, whispers with the gravity of a man witnessing history. "Guard, I think the king is experiencing emotions." Meanwhile, Zerobryn has entered crisis mode externally. Face, controlled. Posture, rigid. Voice, calm. Internally, windows shutting down. Systems overheating. Emotional damage loading at 400%. He watches every movement the healer makes, tracks every breath Malfuria takes, recounts them, probably names them. This is deeply concerning behavior for a man who, last week, tried to win a marriage argument via competitive souffle. She stirs, just slightly. But Zerobryn reacts like someone set off fireworks directly in his bloodstream. Her eyes flutter open. She focuses, finds him. Of course she does. Her voice is rough, but smug, because of course it is. "You look stressed." Something in Zerobryn's soul quietly collapses. But he leans closer without realizing he's doing it. Voice low, careful, different. You were stabbed. Top-tier observational skills. Truly. Malfuria's mouth twitches, even now, even bleeding. Unbelievable woman, for the first time since this disaster marriage began. Zerobryn does not have a comeback ready. No witty jab, no competitive energy, just very controlled panic in royal packaging. The healer finally begins ushering people back. Orders, bandages, important medical things. But Zerobryn does not move. The healer clears his throat gently, professional but tired. Your Majesty, you may release her hand. Pause. Zerobryn looks down, like he has just discovered his own fingers. He does not let go. Later, that night, the palace is quieter. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes everyone deeply aware the tone of this story has just shifted. Zerobryn stands beside her bed, arms folded, face unreadable. He has, in fact, blinked since earlier. Progress. Behind him, but two guards whisper like men narrating a nature documentary. Guard number 1. He hasn't moved in an hour. Guard number 2. Oh, he's gone. Emotionally compromised. On the bed, Malfuria sleeps, breathing steady, alive. Because if she weren't, this would be a very different genre. Zerobryn watches her for a long moment. Then, very quietly, like he is filing a formal complaint with Destiny, he exhales. Internal monologue, highly classified. This is bad. Pause. This is extremely bad. Longer pause. I am, in fact, doomed. Across the kingdom, the political enemies who arranged this marriage are about to realize something unfortunate. The king is no longer playing games. And worse, he cares now. Which, historically speaking, never ends peacefully. Morning arrives gently, which is suspicious, because nothing in this marriage has ever arrived gently. Sunlight spills across the royal chambers. Birds are singing like they have not been briefed on the ongoing emotional crisis. And on the bed, Malfuria's fingers twitch. Across the room, Zerobryn is exactly where he has been for the past several hours. Standing. Watching. Definitely not spiraling internally like a man who just discovered his heart has developed independent decision-making skills. Her eyes open. Clear. Focused. Dangerous. Oh good. She's fine. The kingdom may not be, but she is. She scans the room once. Twice. Then her gaze locks onto Zerobryn. There is a brief pause, or the kind of pause that has historically led to property damage. Her voice is rough from sleep, but sharp enough to cut glass. Did I win? Zerobryn does not hesitate. Not even a little. Not even the ceremonial half-second he used to take when pretending he had emotional defenses. Those defenses are gone. Burned. Buried. Possibly auctioned off by the court already. He steps closer. Voice low. Steady. Hopelessly sincere. You always do. Somewhere in the palace, a court lady drops her teacup, because the vibes just shifted tectonically. Malfuria is still processing. Her eyes narrow slightly. Not suspicious, not mocking, just curious, which is frankly more dangerous, because Malfuria is used to winning competitions. She is not used to winning people. She studies him, long enough to make several nearby guards emotionally uncomfortable. You're being strange. I have always been strange. Sir, be serious. Meanwhile, outside the chamber, the court is already in full goblin mode, because word has spread. The king has not slept, has not left her side, has used his soft voice, multiple witnesses. And most damning of all, he stopped trying to win. Within 30 minutes, 3 new betting pools have formed. Within an hour, the palace accountant has a migraine. Within 2 hours, one guard is emotionally overinvested again. Guard, whispering intensely, "I need them to kiss or fight. I can't live like this." Back in the room, Zero Bryn, veteran of many battles and exactly 0 healthy romantic pursuits, makes a decision. A terrible decision, but a decision nonetheless. He is going to court her, gracefully, respectfully, without turning it into a competition. This lasts approximately 6 seconds. He straightens slightly, clearly rehearsing words in his head that are trying very hard not to come out wrong. They come out wrong anyway. But when you are fully recovered, I would like to... Pause. System lag. Visible emotional buffering. Continue losing to you, intentionally. Silence. Deep, profound, historically significant. From the hallway, someone chokes on air. Malfuria's brow lifts slowly. Oh. Oh no. She sees it. The shift. The sincerity. The deeply unfortunate level of commitment forming behind his eyes. Predator instincts. Activated. She leans back slightly against the pillows. We're studying him like a particularly interesting puzzle. Voice softer now, but sharper. Always sharper. "Careful, Your Majesty." Beat. Her eyes glint. "I'm starting to think you like losing." Direct hit. Critical damage. Zero Bryn is fighting for his life. But here is the problem. The very serious, very dangerous, very sequel-shaped problem. For the first time since this ridiculous marriage began. The Alpha King does not deny it. He exhales slowly, a man accepting his fate in real time, but voice low, almost amused, definitely doomed. "Only when it's you." Somewhere in the palace, the betting pools explode, the court loses all remaining dignity, and one deeply invested guard whispers into the void, "The Alpha King has fallen," repeatedly, mostly on purpose. Malfuria watches him with new, dangerous interest. Zero Bryn standing there like a man who has willingly walked into emotional traffic. 2 months later, the kingdom had adjusted to many things. They had adjusted to weekly competitive flirting. They had adjusted to suspiciously romantic sword practice. They had adjusted to the king voluntarily losing arguments. Most impressively, they had adjusted to Lady Malfuria Vantablade walking around the palace like she could still legally suplex the monarchy if the mood struck her. What they had not adjusted to was today, because today was Malfuria's birthday. And Zero Bryn Thunderfang III, a man whose romantic instincts had previously been declared missing by multiple concerned officials, had decided to give her a gift. This was already a situation with risk. By midday, the entire court had gathered in the main courtyard, not because they were invited, but because experience had taught them a valuable survival lesson. Whenever these two were involved, something emotionally illegal was about to happen. Dame Malfuria stood at the center of the courtyard with her arms crossed, posture calm, but eyes sharp with suspicion. She had learned. Growth had occurred. Character development was alive and well. Zero Bryn stepped forward, looking far too confident for a man about to make a decision this questionable. Then something behind him bleated. The crowd parted slowly, and into the royal courtyard trotted a goat. Not just any goat. But this was a magnificently stubborn-looking creature with the posture of a minor war criminal and the eyes of something that had already headbutted at least 3 pieces of expensive furniture in its lifetime. The silence that followed was profound. Malfuria stared at the animal, then slowly lifted her gaze to Zero Bryn. "You brought me livestock." Zero Bryn folded his arms like a man fully committed to whatever came next, and absolutely not prepared to retreat. "But it suits you." Somewhere in the crowd, an advisor visibly aged 5 years. Malfuria's eyes narrowed with dangerous curiosity, the kind that historically led to property damage and personal growth through violence. "Elaborate, carefully." Zerobrin, displaying the bravery of a man who had already accepted his fate, gestured toward the goat. "Stubborn," he began. A beat. Hard to control. Another beat. Occasionally attempts violence without warning. Right on cue, and then at Zerobrin, then back at the goat, then at Zerobrin, then back at the goat. And slowly, dangerously, a smile began to form. Half the palace entered cardiac distress. "You are walking a very thin line, Your Majesty." Zerobrin stepped closer anyway, because at this point his survival instincts had clearly filed for early retirement, and the air between them shifted again, that familiar charged tension that had been steadily terrorizing the court for months. "You like it," he said quietly. There was a pause. Small. Deadly. Then Malfuria exhaled slowly through her nose. "I do." Behind them, one guard grabbed another's arm. "Something's happening," he whispered hoarsely. "I'm not ready," the second guard breathed. Meanwhile, the goat wandered off to menace a very expensive flower arrangement. No one intervened, but for her hand. Gently, carefully, like a for her hand. Gently, carefully, like a man who remembered the early days and valued his continued existence. Malfuria looked down at their joined hands, then back up at him. Her eyes were still sharp, always sharp, but there was something warmer there now. "You're improving," she said quietly. Zerobrin smirked faintly. "Don't spread that rumor," he murmured. "I have a reputation." And then, because peace had never been an option, Malfuria grabbed him by the collar and kissed him. The courtyard did not survive this well. One guard fainted immediately. Clean drop. Textbook form. Another guard clutched his helmet and burst into tears. I watched this from the beginning. In the background, the goat bleated triumphantly, like it personally orchestrated the romance, which, frankly, no one was prepared to rule out. Was when they finally pulled apart, the courtyard was in absolute shambles, emotionally, structurally, and possibly financially. Malfuria's thumb brushed briefly against Zerobrin's wrist. "Careful, Your Majesty." Zerobrin grinned with the calm confidence of a man who had fully accepted his fate. Too late. And somewhere in the palace records, it would later be noted, with great historical importance, that the Alpha King gave her a goat and somehow still lost the argument. And so, for dear listeners, peace was never truly restored to the kingdom. But it did get significantly more entertaining. The betting pools are still thriving. The guards are still emotionally overinvested. The goat has, unfortunately, been promoted to honorary menace of the royal gardens. And somewhere in the palace, an Alpha King, who once feared nothing, now willingly loses arguments just to see one very dangerous woman smile. Love changes people. Sometimes gently, sometimes with a flying kick to the face. If this chaotic royal disaster made you laugh, gasp, or question the emotional stability of fictional monarchies, make sure you're subscribed, because this kingdom is absolutely not done embarrassing itself. Until next time, stay dramatic, stay hydrated, and never, under any circumstances, underestimate a woman who knows where Clause 47 is bookmarked. Chaos will resume shortly.